This is Zettelcast, brought to you by readers, writers, thinkers, and teachers from Lilypub, along with our partners in thought, our Zettelkastens. In this show, we share discoveries that our Zettelkastens have shown us.
There you go.
And compare notes on how we're using this marvelous invention in our creative work. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Brooke, do it again.
All right.
Episode 49. Q&A on AI with Chief Optimist, Chelle Meadows. Part 1.
This is Zettelcast number 49. And we have the pleasure of having as our guest Chelle Meadows, MBA, educator, strategist, and creator of the YouTube channel that features Research 101, AI, Let's Talk About It, and Introduction to Zettelkasten. Chelle is a PhD candidate. I wasn't going to say student, but candidate. Okay. Studying the impact of AI on leadership and strategy. And she's widely recognized for making complex systems like AI policy and knowledge management accessible and practical. She calls herself a Chief Optimist and brings that forward-looking energy to every project. Please join me in welcoming Chelle Meadows. Okay.
Welcome.
I like your intro. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we had 8 questions.
Yes.
Chelle, and I just heard you say that these are pretty much the same questions that everybody asks you, apparently. Okay.
Yep, I get asked these a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So we that's good. So how do you want to do it? You just want to go down the line?
Yeah. Why don't we? I kind of scribbled some notes together, so that I had my thoughts in mind. So they're in order of the question.
Okay. All right. Well, the first 3 questions, pardon me, are actually from Kathleen. And the first question is, you do a lot of work in the area of understanding how AI will affect the business sector and the challenges of adapting to AI. How has that developed over the past year with all the buzz about AI now?
So AI is a very rapidly evolving, disruptive technology that's come into the marketplace. And it's disruptive for 2 reasons. The first reason it's disruptive is because it's a technology that's being introduced in a very different way than any other technology. So in the past, when you think about the first computer, and I'm sure, Kathleen, this will appeal to you, or you could speak more to this. The computer technology was not only massive in size, but it was massive in the requirements financially that were needed to build it. You know, think about it. The first computers used to fill up an entire room, right? They were huge. And so the only people that could invest in that type of technology were the government, huge businesses, or academia, if they got a grant or something to do it, right? AI is different. AI came in through a consumer and business application. In other words, it didn't have to wait for business to first learn about it and then piecemeal it to us as consumers. AI was introduced, at least the latest generative AI, was introduced to everybody on an equal playing field, business and consumer. And so you ended up with a much faster adoption rate because consumers got excited about it and wanted to explore it at the same time businesses were exploring it. But it's disruptive because it's thrown all of us back into the classroom. Doesn't matter if you're a student already in school or you're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. We're all learning at the same time what its capabilities are and how to apply it. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the first two reasons that it's disruptive. The third reason it's so disruptive is because it's changing even within its own marketplace. And for this, I look at history, right? So in the 1970s, we had the big oil embargo. And before that embargo hit us, Toyota tried to introduce a car and it failed miserably. It was ugly, it was fuel efficient, and it had, high safety, but it was tiny. And Americans were like, yeah, no way, go big or go home, to steal the 1980s dairy mantra. But then the oil embargo hit, and all of a sudden, gas was either not available or it was very expensive. And so, fuel efficient, cheap cars were what were demanded. From the time that Toyota got kind of kicked out of the marketplace and failed with their first launch to their second launch, what did they do? They analyzed the marketplace, they analyzed the technology, they looked at what the big three companies were doing, they looked at what Americans wanted, and they tried again with a much better product, which took what was needed in the right time and brought it together. Okay. DeepSeek is doing the same thing to the AI industry. I refer to DeepSeek as being the Toyota and OpenAI, whatever. I never remember what Twitter calls their. The big players within the AI sphere are getting disrupted themselves by DeepSeek's technology and approach. Now, don't take that as an endorsement of DeepSeek. Don't use it, okay? Because Chinese laws are different than American laws. All right, and so that's
what. So
that's
what? Can you tell us a little bit about DeepSeek?
Don't use it? Did you say don't use it?
Don't use DeepSeek? No. Chinese law requires their companies to retain all data that they gather. So you're literally sharing everything you do within DeepSeek with China.
Oh, wow.
So reading those terms and conditions and knowing who you're working with is really important. And that's where we're at a disadvantage from a consumer level. Okay. Businesses, as a normal course of business, understand things such as restricted companies, trade laws that are maybe harmful to the United States or to its citizens and things of that nature. Consumers are not. We just think it's cool. Oh, this is cool. Let's try it out. Let's play. And then they get upset when big government or big business come in and say, wait a minute, this might not be the best thing. The closest example I can share of that would be the TikTok ban. Right? TikTok went down. All these small businesses that were highly dependent upon it went absolutely crazy, right? Because their livelihoods were now tied into an application. And so that's why you had that tug of war. And we're going to see that happening in the AI realm.
Who puts out DeepSeek? What's the name of the company? It's not DeepSeek, right? It's something else.
No, it's called DeepSeek. That's the name of the model. It's called DeepSeek, just like ChatGPT, just like Perplexity, just like Luminal. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I don't use it ever.
Well, from what you said, is a good thing. We don't. None of us need to use it because.
Right, but here's the thing: DeepSeek made their LLM open source, so anybody can create their own AI.
On top of that,
Yeah, so you've got open source, which basically says everybody agrees that they can use this code and that they're going to share and contribute to the community and make it bigger, better, right? Trying to think of other things that started off as open source. There's so many programs out there that started off with this model, right? I think back in my coding days, Twitter developed their whole new platform using a new coding language called Bootstrap. Okay, where instead of typing your coding very old school, where you had to type every single line of the code, they created a shortcut method. It was like taking the English language and using shorthand. That's what Twitter did with coding, Okay. And it was called Bootstrap. They gave it to everybody. I was able to use Bootstrap to program websites for my clients because Twitter had it open sourced. Okay. That's what DeepSeek is doing. Not only did they make it extremely cheap to use, but they said, oh, by the way, here's our code. So other companies now in America are using that as their base.
Without even knowing that
well, they probably know. I just hope that they're smart enough to go into the code and completely segregate it, which you can do when you open source. You can put it on a prem and you can break connections and things like that. But those are questions I ask, you know.
It sounds like a Trojan horse to me, you know.
It could be. Mm-hmm. It could be. So that's kind of like what's happened over the last year. That's what the buzz is right now that people are talking about. The news is really filling up right now with AI failures. Big companies where they've invested a lot of money into AI and it hasn't worked. And that's where my dissertation comes in. I have my ideas on why I think these AI initiatives are failing, and it has nothing to do necessarily with the technology itself, but with their approach to technology. I don't consider myself an AI expert. The umbrella of AI spans longer than my lifetime. AI was first introduced in 1950, and I wasn't introduced until 1975, right? So it had a head start even on me. Mm-hmm. But what we termed AI back then is very different from the AI that's come out in the last 2 to 3 years, right? And so I don't like to think of myself as an AI expert. I think of myself as an AI business strategist because I look at how to improve workflows and processes, leveraging a variety of tools, of which AI is only one of them in my toolbox.
Mm-hmm. See, AI is just one of them. So
when you send me a question and you're asking about AI, I'm assuming that you're talking about like the chat GPTs, the LLMs, because you're writers and based on the questions you asked cumulatively, that was my assumption. But sometimes when people ask a question about AI, I have to first say, well, define it. When you say AI, what are you talking about? Because it's not safe to make an assumption.
Right. But you know a little bit about us, so you were right.
I had kind of a little bit of an advantage.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think it's a fun and it's an exciting field. I get that it's scary and I understand why it's scary, but there is so much potential to it, which is how the moniker of Chief Optimist came up. I was talking to people about AI and I was like, no, it'll be able to do this and it'll be able to do this and it'll do this. And I could see its potential when everybody else was being a naysayer. And so somebody was like, oh, you're always just so optimistic, Shelley. And so I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm going to be the chief optimist. And it kind of stuck.
Well, it should, because if you can throw a light on what everybody is going about, this is a good thing. This is a good thing, you know. So
are there any follow-up questions to that particular question? All right.
Well, I'm kind of intrigued, but maybe it's too much of a rabbit hole to hear where you think the businesses that are failing have gone wrong. What are there some?
Yeah. There's no standardized framework. So it fails for a multitude of reasons. It fails because they don't tie it to a corporate objective. It fails because it's not tied to their strategic decision making. It fails because the C-suite thinks, well, we've got a framework. We're applying ethical guidance. We're communicating. And the employees are saying, we have no idea what they're doing. We're just told to use it. And I don't know about ethics. Nobody's talked to us about ethics. So there's a very big disconnect between the rank and file, for a better word, and the C-suite. And then even within the C-suite, there's a big disconnect in that there's no standard on what even something like ethical governance means. Now, for me, it refers to bias, transparency, and fairness, right? But to a lot of people in the C-suite, it just means, oh, well, we apply with the GDPR, the European Union's legislation, because America doesn't have any legislation yet, other than President Trump's rather weak and limp-wristed AI policy of just go do it.
Yeah, wow.
So, that's what my dissertation is about the fact that there's the absence of a framework is resulting in strategic misalignment and wasted funds and money, basically.
Wow. So when
they're trying to treat AI like they did a computer. Well, let's just throw money at it, teach people how to use it, and it'll work fine. AI is not that kind of technology.
Plus, how are you going to teach somebody how to use it when you don't even know how to think about it yourself?
Correct. It's the blind leading the blind.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. Listen, let me ask you, when will your dissertation be published?
Hopefully by the end of this year. It'll be published however the school publishes it, which is, I think, their own personal dissertation library. I have my second book coming out hopefully at the beginning of next year, when humanity and technology collide, which talks about the issues with AI.
Yes.
But as soon as that's published, I'm planning on turning my dissertation into a third book.
To a third, because I want to read it. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Trust me, it's really boring. That's why I have to rewrite it as a book, because dissertation writing is not the same as literature writing.
I understand that, but the topics, what you're covering, what you're talking about is fascinating to me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not so sure it'd be boring, but
so the second question you guys had asked about was, do I use AI to assist in my writing? Hell yes.
Hell yes. How do you use it? Yeah.
So first off, I publish 2 articles a week on LinkedIn. Okay. The way I come about with my articles is the Zettelkasten way, right? I read something here and I read something here, and in my head is always the AI train, right? Running on its different tracks. And I get different cargo dumped in. Well, then they collide. Okay. And all of a sudden I start thinking of things about AI and why it'll work or not work. So I just read, or I'm in the process of reading, a book called The Terrorist Next Door. Doesn't sound like anything AI related, right? No, it's not. But in the first three to 4 chapters of the book, it relies upon the written words of anti-Semites and racist people all the way from the Revolutionary War through McCarthyism. Okay? Now think about that. America and the world in general held 2 views. That African Americans were a workforce and that Jews were not to be trusted. Mm-hmm. Now, LLMs used all of our writings to learn how to write. Is there any wonder that there's bias in our writings? Is there any wonder that there's bias in LLM outputs? So that's what one of my articles is going to be about coming up. Okay, so what am I going to do? How do I write that article? I literally open up my ChatGPT and I word bomb it. There's no other way to describe it. I literally just sit there and I say, I read this book and it talks about this and da 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 da, and I'm thinking about this, and I think that this is part of the problem with our LLMs because nobody actually vetted the content that they trained it on to see if it was actually legitimate and should be used to train on from a socially, word vomit. Okay. I literally, I don't follow any of the rules of prompting at this point. I am just vomiting in a run-on sentence, so to speak, everything I'm thinking of.
Stream of consciousness. Yes. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my prompt is, I guess I should say before I do my stream of consciousness, is I'll say, I want to write a professional article for LinkedIn pertaining to artificial intelligence based on the following. Okay. Now it already knows what I mean by professional because I've trained it for 2.5 years.
Okay.
Okay. But that doesn't mean that this first draft that it spits out is right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then it spits it out. It basically just takes everything that I said and it will use my own words. It will use my own creative input and it will turn it into an article. And then the real editing begins. Okay. Take out the word delve, get rid of the M dashes. Remember, you have to have at least 3 sentences per paragraph. Don't be an idiot, right? No different than a teacher does with a student's first draft.
Mm-hmm.
I give it feedback and it corrects it. And then from there, I take it out of the LLM and I throw it in Word. And then I refine it and tweak it and fix it and change the way things are worded. And I use Grammarly because Grammarly is an English writing where LLMs tend to be more British writing. Different grammar rules. Sorry, I don't say firstly, secondly, thirdly. I say first, second, third. Right? There's certain nuances there that are different. And so then I use Grammarly to help me get it to where I am happy with that final output.
May I ask you which AI do you use?
Right now, I bounce between ChatGPT and Perplexity. And the reason I bounce is because ChatGPT 5 sucks.
Oh.
ChatGPT does what?
ChatGPT 5, which is their newest model.
Yes. It sucks. Yeah.
It can do certain things really well. And some things that it used to do in the 4.5 model, it bombs. And so I use Perplexity. My Perplexity is set up to use Claude, OpenAI, Grok. I think there's a mix of it. And I'll just be like, when I'm doing statistical analysis and things that I'm checking where I need it to be accurate, I'll use Perplexity.
Wow. Okay. So obviously you're not using the the $20 model. That's not.
No, I am. I use the $20 a month.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
I must have mine set up wrong. Okay. All right. Okay.
Well, it keep in mind that I've uploaded. I trained my model. Okay, I uploaded 20 years of my writings.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so it knows how I write. I average an insane number of prompts. I think it's been a while since I've asked it to give me a statistical update. The last time I did a statistical update, it said something like I had 6,000 conversations. So I talk about this as transference. Okay. So as I'm interacting every single day within this chat, it's learning about me.
Yeah.
Okay. My personality, my quirks, my writing style, my word choices, what I like, what I don't like. It's been transferred into the model as a mathematical statistical probability. Okay. Yeah. At the same time, I've been using Grammarly since 2018 to help me improve my writing. Okay. The first time I used Grammarly, I think it told me I had 1,000 errors in my first paper for college. Right. Now I'm under 100. And usually it's because I wrote passively. Okay. My interactions with these tools has also transferred knowledge to me. They're not systems in a vacuum any more than raising a child is in a vacuum. Okay. So there is that interaction back and forth, and over time it learns. Now sometimes I have to correct it. Okay. Yeah. This is why I say LLMs are the equivalent of a 13-year-old that still talks to its 5-year-old imaginary friend. Okay. If I tell my 13-year-old to go clean the kitchen, I guarantee she's going to hallucinate that it's clean.
Guaranteed. Okay? Yes.
Okay. But if I tell my 13-year-old, go clean the kitchen, and by clean the kitchen, I mean empty the dishwasher, reload the dishwasher, wipe down and spray down all the counters, sinks, stove, surfaces, sweep the floor, take the dirty washcloths and towels and put them in the laundry room and lay out fresh ones.
Step by step, right.
It's the same thing with LLMs. It's the same thing with prompting. And just like my 13-year-old, I have to go in and inspect it. Did she clean the kitchen? Oh, nope, you forgot to wipe down the kitchen, the microwave. I go back and I correct her. Okay?
Yes.
It's the same thing with LLMs. I get frustrated when people introduce them as intelligent interns. It is not an intelligent intern. An intelligent intern can think. Okay? 13-year-olds don't think. They run off of emotion. Right? I mean, it has to be trained. And so yes, I use the AI to help me write, but I have trained it how to assist me. Okay. Now I'm an organic writer, which means I don't schedule out for the year what I'm going to publish twice a week, every week. Okay. I don't. I wait and I see, what are people talking about? What are questions I'm getting asked? What am I reading? What am I thinking about? Right. I'm very organic or chaotic, depending on how you look at it. So when I published my first book, I threw all of my articles into Word because I wasn't even smart enough to save all of my articles in a single document. I had to go back and copy and paste a year's worth of writing into Word. I've gotten smarter this year. Okay. And then I used Word's reference formatting and formatted all my titles so I could get an automatically generated table of contents.
Yes.
Okay. I printed that table of contents as a 2-page, 3-page, whatever it was, PDF. And then I uploaded that into ChatGPT. Okay, here's all my articles. I want to publish a book about AI for business leaders. Put these articles in a logical order for me. And it did. It broke it up into 6 parts. It put them in order very, very logically from kind of the beginning up through the different processes. And then it kicks them out. And I'm like, wait a minute. This doesn't match. Where's the rest of my articles? Yeah, they don't fit.
What'd you say to that?
So there, obviously throughout the course of a year, I'm going to write some outliers, and it didn't know what to do with them because they just didn't fit. So then I had to make the editorial decision of, no, it fits and it fits here. Or, well, think about it, right? Okay. Then I reorganized, and that took forever, collapsed all of the articles so that I could then move them and get them in the right order. And I laid out the book. Okay. I got the book all laid out. Well, what do you do when you're done with your book? You send it to who?
Editor.
Proofreader. Well, I mean, if you're smart, you send it to a proofreader before the editor, right? So then you are a book proofreader. Proofread this book and tell me in a list format by page number every single correction I should make. Well, I can only process so many pages at a time. My book was 100 and some pages, 200 some pages. So I broke it up into segments. Print to PDF, break it up into segments, whatever. And then I'd have it proofread and give me a whole list of corrections. And I'd go in and make those corrections. Okay. And I must have done that 5 or 6 times. And that's just, keep sending it in until finally it started kissing my butt and telling me what a great writer I was.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the next step is you are a book editor. Edit this book for publication. Well, then I got a whole different set of corrections. Okay. And eventually I got done with the whole proofing, editing, correcting through the LLM. Then the real work began. I had to print it to PDF and read it myself. Right? Now, obviously I've read every article, but now as I'm reading it myself, now I've got critical thinking. Now I've got logic that says, ooh, I talk about it here and then I talk about it here, but I'm not talking about it the same way. I should probably make that more consistent. Right? There's all this editing and transitioning and putting in notes. And then I also had to make decisions. In my first book, I made the decision to put the date in because AI had evolved throughout the course of the year that I was writing. So I wanted people to kind of know when I wrote it, which meant I could also put my funny Halloween one back in with a caveat that, this was written during Halloween. And so, yes, it's very cheesy and talks about RIP is, we've always done it that way is dead. Right? Okay. And so, yes, I used AI to help me write it. I talked to it like I would a publisher. I'm self-published. I published it myself. And so I said, okay, help me. I'm not good at introducing myself. So I was like, okay, well, I need a thing about the author. It already has my resume online. It already has my LinkedIn profile. It's got everything that I've written in the last 2 years. It wrote a pretty decent introduction, so I was able to tweak it and customize it and throw that in. And then once I did have it published within Amazon, then it was, well, help me put my author page together. Help me put together this. And then I needed a marketing campaign because, of course, Amazon doesn't market your book for you. Then it told me all about what I should publish and where and how frequently and da 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 da. Right? So yes, I use it. Now, do I think that impacts my originality, creativity, or ownership of those articles?
Yeah, that's the next question. Right. Do you?
No.
Okay.
I don't, because it all started with what? My
what you put
stream
in.
of consciousness.
Yes, what you put in. Mm-hmm.
How is that any different than what any other author goes through right now?
Yeah.
Okay. You have somebody else proofread your stuff for you, give you feedback, tell you what to correct. I still went through 12 revisions before it was even published. And that's just from the PDF to the printed proof copies. Okay. So the way I look at it is the same way that I look at quilting. And Kathleen, you said you liked this. So I'm a quilter. All right. I'm a big quilter. And like any other quilter, I'm also a fabric collector, not a hoarder. Okay. And all of my fabric is nice and neatly organized on comic book boards, acid-free comic book boards. And each board holds half a yard or more of fabric. And I've got 600 and some in bookcases in my sewing room. I've been quilting for over 30 years now. So I was sitting there quilting and sewing and piecing, and I was looking at my boards and I was thinking, now my fabric collection is a collection that I've acquired over 30 years. Not a single one of them is something I created. Not a single one of them. Somebody else designed every single one of those fabrics. I technically can't say I designed the pattern, because every single block I've ever created, I've gotten from somewhere. But the choice of fabric and the choice of pattern and the way they're connected is unique. even if I did it off of a kit where everything's pre-cut for you and all you have to do is sew it and assemble and follow instructions, you're still not going to have any two finished quilts be exactly the same. Why? Well, because I can't tell white on whites, and I'm inherently going to have one piece in there that's backwards. Okay? And I quilt differently. And even if two people chose the exact same pattern for the exact same quilt using the exact same sewing machine, you're not going to start at the exact same point. You're always going to be slightly off. Now, is that finished quilt my creation or not?
I say it's yours.
Okay. LLMs do the exact same thing. They took millions of written things, they cut them up into tiny little pieces to create statistical mathematical models, and it spits it out based on your interaction and transference with it. So is that output any less yours?
One respect that makes a big difference is that every half yard of fabric, every comic book acid-free board they're round upon, are things that you yourself purchased from the people that did create it. The challenge, of course, with the LLMs is
well, but
again, what they're trained on.
Yes and no. Depends on where I purchased it. I get a lot of my quilt fabric from Goodwill. It's been far removed at that point from the original designer.
Yes, but somebody paid that designer.
Yeah, at some point they were paid. So was the very first published book. They're dead. I would say if something's written today or tomorrow, that would be maybe a little bit different. But we know that the LLMs only gather data up to a certain point.
Interesting. My husband follows a YouTuber, blogger, blogs daily, and writes books, sort of in the motivational category. And he spent considerable time writing what he felt was his very best book, and he felt that he had some really novel things in there that were truly new and truly great ways for people to think about things to make forward progress. When his book had been out for a couple of months, he asked ChatGPT to summarize his book, which it happily did. Then he asked it to name the key points that he made in his book, which it happily did. And then I don't know that he could have done this. He's looking at his book and he's saying, now what is somebody buying? The anecdotes?
Well, I mean, he wrote his book. So the key points that it pulled out, were they correct? Did he validate it? First off,
he said it had his whole book there.
Well, but so one of the things that I did, and I do this a lot, is on social media, somebody will ask an esoteric question like, if I wanted to take over if I were the devil and I wanted to take over the human race, what would I do? Okay. People actually ask this of these large language models. And then they post the response on social media and go, see, it's trying to take over the world and this is so scary.
Yeah.
I'll ask ChatGPT the exact same question with one addition. Provide your sources. And it will turn out that question of if I were Satan and how to take over the world has plagued mankind since its existence in some way, shape, or form. And in fact, its answers came completely from places unrelated. So I would be curious if in asking that question, if it pulled it from, say, an Amazon posting, did it pull it from a review? Because on Amazon, you've got the table of contents preview. Now, he's assuming it has access to his entire book, and it may not, because I don't know what LLM he's using. I don't know That's where it gets tricky, because whenever I do prompting, other than my word vomit, I always ask for sources, because I want to know. I might think my idea is completely original and nobody has ever thought of that. And I'll type it in and say, hey, is there anything out there about X, Y, and Z? Oh my God, there's tons of stuff out there. And I get that he thinks his idea is unique and original and he's the first one to ever come up with it. And he may be. I'm not saying he's not.
I'm saying he framed his question, what does the book by this author present? So the way he framed it,
Okay,
tell
but
me what
he
this
also needs to say, and provide your sources.
Yeah.
Did he do an interview?
I don't know. I
Did
don't.
he? But that's what I'm saying, is that there's so many other sources that it could have pulled it from that were public domain. Somebody could have written a blog post about it. He could have done a video on it, or an interview on it. He could have gotten somebody could have done a review on it, right? I think we have been indoctrinated by media, meaning movies, pundits, and articles, to always have a negative impact or opinion of AI.
Yeah. I guess what I'm wondering is, would it then know about something? There's a number of sources out there now that have pirated books. I had some names.
And I don't know if they're using pirated sources.
Yeah, because if somebody got a pirated book and then uploaded it as a source for their research, would it then have it?
And that's why I always ask for sources.
Yeah.
When I threw in the philosophical, I'm the devil, how do I take over the world? It quoted Locke, Descartes, Socrates, Plato. It was actually very interesting to say, and the answer it gave me was very similar. Now there were a few word choices and stuff that were different, right? From the social media post of it, but by asking it for its sources, I knew where it was coming from them, and it even used scripture, which I thought was kind of funny.
Well, not funny at all.
Well, no, I mean,
That's where we first learned of the devil.
yeah, but the first version of ChatGPT 3.0, the very first one, it marked scripture as fiction. Right? And so it was kind of interesting that, it went from marking scripture as fiction to using it to answer questions. I thought that was kind of funny.
Shelley, we've only answered 2 questions
Sorry.
so far. And we are already at 12:48, so almost an hour has passed.
Oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. We're going on and on.
Right. So I wanted to ask you, well, the third question was, when you had to defend yourself with the who trained who, what did you do? And can you answer that?
Yep, this was a slightly different scenario. Yeah. So I had actually written the entire thing myself. It's for school. So I do not allow ChatGPT to write my school papers. Okay, because I signed an honor agreement saying that I wouldn't. But this is where the whole concept of transference comes in. I submitted something that I wrote myself personally after using LLMs for, I think at that point it was 18 months, and using Grammarly, which is permitted since 2018. And they run every article or paper through a chat or LLM detector. And mine came up as 78% written by ChatGPT.
Whoa.
And I wrote it myself. How does that happen? Well, first off, these LLM detectors have a 1% failure rate. 1% doesn't sound that bad until you're looking at 375,000 term papers. That means 375 people are going to get falsely accused. Okay. And so what I did is and keep in mind, I have written and trained within the LLM 20 years of my writing. So I trained an LLM that they're then using to detect whether or not my original writing was written by an LLM. Okay. So what I did is I went into the school's own digital library and I did research on LLM detectors and their failure rates and how they work and da 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 da. And then I contacted the school board and through advising, and I said, who do I need to talk to, because this is a problem and here's why this is a problem, and da da da. And she's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's so far like over my head. I don't know what you're talking about. However, there's nothing on your official record about this. Okay, so then I went to the professor, and everything I had told to advising, I also told to the professor, and included 3 research articles from the school's own library about why chat detectors don't work. And he basically reached out to me and said he was required by the school to email any student whose paper flagged higher than a certain percentage. And after that, I've never been flagged. You know, now, is that going to be the case for 99% of the students? No. My case is unique in the sense that I've been training and working with this ever since it was introduced, not only personally, but professionally. And so, in essence, I'm going to come up with a high score every time, no matter what.
Yeah, they should ask. I was picturing that, when you can ask ChatGPT the source, you can say, okay, Chelle Meadows seems to have copied LLMs in this section. What is the original source of the information that you were trained on? Chelle Meadows.
I don't know. It might refer to my own paper.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I have actually not done that. That would be kind of funny. To do that actually, because it does. Sometimes it'll cite my own articles. What's the source for this? And it'll refer to an article I published, which is, I always thought was kind of funny. But I also had, in addition to that, I had my Zettelkasten notes for that particular paper. Right? So here's the original research, here's the original notes I wrote on that research. And at that time, I wasn't so buried that I actually had the Zettelkasten cards and I could prove the connection.
Oh, you had the cards. This wasn't
not physical, but I still call them cards because they're in Obsidian. I still create cards. I just do it digitally. And so I could prove this, how I got it. I could prove the genesis of the idea. But what it's looking for is it's looking for patterns in writing. And those LLMs are going to continue to fail because of transference. Just as Grammarly taught me how to become a better writer, the cadence and methodology of how I assemble words together, I mean, that's that rhythmic way of writing. I mean, that would be like saying that Eminem's poems aren't original, because they match a certain cadence or beat. Do you know what I'm saying? We're all taught in school to write subject, verb, noun, right? And then, okay, now describe the subject, describe the verb, describe the noun. We're taught that cadence of writing, that pattern. So eventually, as more and more people use LLMs and start to write in ebb like that, that pattern is going to get blurred, more and more blurred. Right now, it's relatively distinct because it was trained on writing spanning a massive amount of time. But the fine tuning and correcting, how many R's are in strawberry, right? Over time, it's going to get more and more human-like. That's the nature of natural language processing. And just like a statistical formula gets closer and closer and closer, the more data you put into it, that's what LLMs are going to do. And that's why the answers are never the same. If you ask it a question today and you ask the same question tomorrow, you're not going to get the exact same answer.
Even the same day.
Yeah.
Not even, even the same day. Why? Because how many millions of people are training it now?
How do you protect your?
Pardon?
I said, how do you you said you put all this 20 years worth of writing into it.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, or do you protect that from being,
Oh, I don't care. It's all old school papers. It's things I wrote. It's journal entries. It's
what about your new stuff?
Blog posts. I mean, I did it. Basically, what I did is I was testing whether or not it could actually index my Google Drive.
Huh.
I didn't care what was in it. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't care. I took out my tax file because that had Social Security numbers.
Yeah.
Right? I deleted my taxes from my Google Drive, and then I connected it to my Google Drive, and I was like, can you read this and index it? Can I ask you questions about it? It was a way of testing it. I didn't think at the time, did I think, oh, this is going to cause a problem when I submit papers in college? Right? No. But it was a part of learning what it can do. Now, would I recommend that everybody connect their drives to it? Probably not. Unless you really want it to be an effective editor and proofreader of your work. If you're using it collaboratively like I am now on my writings, I don't care that it's got my whole book at this point. I'm all about changing the conversation about AI. So if somebody asks a question and it pulls from my book and gives them a more optimistic response, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm of the mindset that my writing is for a purpose other than ownership or profit. I mean, do I make money on my book? Not really. I get paid $5 for everyone that sells. And I'm not on the New York Times bestseller list.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And even if I was, and people were asking questions and AI was answering it and using my optimistic approach or my business strategy or trying to explain to them how to use it better, that's my goal. So I'm okay with it using mine. Because I have a different perspective. I have a different outcome that I'm looking for. Now, if you don't want an LLM to process your information, you basically have to say this is copyrighted and not to be used for LLM or training purposes on every single page. And it might tell you if somebody uploads it, it might tell them, I can't process this because it's copyrighted and proprietary information.
Okay.
But what's to keep somebody from cutting that out?
Mm-hmm.
If there's a will, there's a way. There's always going to be people that want to cheat.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe in the inherent goodness of people and of technology. I'm not Skynet afraid.
Okay. All right. So,
I mean, what's the purpose of writing? Entertainment, in which case, okay, maybe you're more concerned about copywriting. What happened?
You're still here.
Oh,
yeah.
it looked like I froze.
Nope.
No.
Okay, there we are. So if you're writing for entertainment, then okay, maybe you want to protect yourself more. But I believe that everything that's written or produced is for other people to digest. And I believe the honest people will pay me for my work. That's why I'm a chief optimist, because I'm a Pollyanna.
For part 2 of this discussion, please join us next time. Episode 50.